mornings. We are moving on to what is labeled the volume 3 in A Course of Miracles. It's called the Manual for Teachers, and in the sequence of delivery to Helen and Bill, the Manual for Teachers was the third and last of the major volumes of material that came through. This would have been after 6 or 7 years of dictation. This came through. They never knew what was next. With the workbook lessons, it was pretty obvious after a certain point that they were going to get 365 lessons. So that was, but with all these other materials, they never knew when there would be an end or even that anything was coming. So here now we have the Manual for Teachers. And I'll just say one thing that'll be dealt with early on. It's not what you think. Because when we say Manual for Teachers, the ordinary mind says, well, this is only for those who are going to teach, maybe some formal role of teach A Course in Miracles. Well, it's not what you think. It's much broader than that. So, hello and welcome to Miracles on the High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader today is Kathy S.
The role of teaching and learning is actually reversed in the thinking of the world. The reversal is characteristic. It seems as if the teacher and the learner are separated, the teacher giving something to the learner rather than to himself. Further, the act of teaching is regarded as a special activity in which one engages only in a relatively small proportion of one's time. The Course, on the other hand, emphasizes that to teach is to learn, so that teacher and learner are the same. It also emphasizes that teaching is a constant process. It goes on every moment of the day and continues into sleeping thoughts as well. To teach is to demonstrate.
So right here, this is still the introduction. Right here in the introduction, we have what is perhaps one of the most important points is we're not talking about some kind of formal title or role as teacher. We are talking about something that everyone does. You demonstrate with your life what it is you believe to be true about yourself and relations and others and why you're here, so that we are all both teachers and learners. They are the same. Anyone that is learning is also demonstrating what it is that they have learned, what it is that they've come to believe. So this is very different, is actually reversed from the thinking of the world. And this reversal, it says, is characteristic. We've read elsewhere in the Course that the world has many things upside down, perceived upside down or inverted compared to the divine view the Holy Spirit has. And this reversal is characteristic of all things, including love and fear. So in the world, it becomes the habit to fear the love and to love the fear. Well, this is upside down. And so as we approach the idea of teachers, we have to realize we mean it in this sense of anyone that has learned something, and it's a constant process of then demonstrating what it is that you believe to be true of, first of all, of yourself. What is your function, your role? Why are you here? And what is your relationship to others? We are always demonstrating that at all times. Sandra?
Yeah, I love the equanimity of this. and that there can't be a know-it-all. And this opens it up for dialogue. Like if you think you know something, if you can dialogue about it, um, maybe the other person will learn something, or maybe they'll straighten you out and tell you, oh, no, you made a mistake there. That's the wrong direction, or in my experience. And this comes from, it's an experiential thing because there's no know-it-all. It's just, this is what worked for me, and I can share it with you, and you can, it's just like if you want to try it, great. If you don't, find your own way. It's just, I just love the equanimity of this. That's all. We're all teachers and we're all students.
I love it too. It's really the better way. I think it's inherently more attractive than having a hierarchy where some people stand way above everybody else and they are the wise ones and everyone else is beneath them. That's not very attractive. Kathy?
I was on one of Marianne's classes, Return to Love classes that ended, and it's this sentence. It goes on every moment of the day and continues into sleeping thoughts as well. One of the students put her hand up and said, Marianne, you came to me in a lucid dream and were teaching me the answer to this question she had had. So it's very interesting. When I just read this, I thought of that. I know the course doesn't probably talk about lucid dreaming or anything like that, but I just wanted to share that. I think sometimes we have to expand our view of what is possible, you know.
We certainly do need to expand our view. All right, let's go on.
To teach is to demonstrate. There are only two thought systems, and you demonstrate that you believe one or the other is true all the time. From your demonstration, others learn, and so do you. The question is not whether you will teach, for in that there is no choice. The purpose of the course might be said to provide you with a means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn. You cannot give to someone else, but only to yourself. And this you learn through teaching. Teaching is but a call to witnesses, to attest to what you believe. It is a method of conversion. This is not done by words alone. Any situation must be to you a chance to teach others what you are and what they are to you. No more than that, but also never less.
So, to reinforce a couple points, since we're always demonstrating what we believe, from your demonstration, others learn, and so do you. You actually, in living your life, are testifying to what you believe to be true about yourself and about others and about life. You are reinforcing and learning what you already believe. And then one of what I believe to be the most fascinating statements comes up. The question is then, since there's two different thought systems, one based on love, the other based on fear, the question is not whether or not you're going to teach from one of them, for you have no choice in that. The question is then, which one are you going to teach from? And the course provides you with a set of insights, a set of understanding that would allow you to choose what you want to teach based on what you want to learn. One of the most often repeated statements by Course in Miracles students is, I never knew there was another choice. I never knew there was another thought system available. And of course, this is true because we're being introduced to the Holy Spirit's thought system. You are not going to learn that through this world's literature and teachings. So, excuse me, I gotta let somebody in. So now you have a choice. Do you want to learn about love? And if so, then in the process, you will demonstrate what you're learning about love. Or do you want to remain beholden to the teachings of fear and therefore demonstrate in your life that you're invested in learning about fear? So you're now we're using the word teaching in this new reformed manner that the Course instructs us about. The teaching, but will call you to attest to what it is that you believe, what it is you're learning. And therefore, the one who is teaching is deeply invested in the learning, and so are those, and so are the others. But there's a further point that is somewhat alluded to in the statement that Kathy made. Even while you're asleep, you're teaching. Well, teaching and learning is not done by words alone. Any situation can be to you a chance to teach what yourself and others what you are. So when you are asleep, your mind is echoing back the contents that you put in there. After all, where do those thoughts come from? Largely, they come from what you've poured into your mind. Although, as Kathy said, there's possibilities from beyond what we would think of as your mind that we should consider. But for the most part, if you pour love and peace and kindness into your mind during your waking life, while you're sleeping, that will echo back. So you are always demonstrating what you believe, with words or without words. One more thing to say about this. Sometimes you can really say a lot about a person when the chips are really down. Like, let's say their car just caught fire and they no longer have a vehicle, or something even more tragic. How they respond to those situations, you teach. What you're teaching is not done by words alone. It's often conveyed in your feelings, your nonverbal communications, your actions, and your choices. Go on.
The curriculum you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are and what you believe the relationship of others is to you. In the formal teaching situation, these questions may be totally unrelated to what you think you are teaching. Yet it is impossible not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach and therefore really learn. To this, the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant. It may coincide with it or it may not. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. This does not mean that the self you are trying to protect is real, but it does mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. This is inevitable.
This goes so deep. So let's consider for a moment a formal teaching situation, let's say a teacher of sixth grade children, and the teacher is teaching some subject matter. Well, in the formal teaching situation, the contents of what are being taught, let's say it's mathematics, I'm just hypothetically speaking here, is teaching the children mathematics. But the children don't understand the math or they wouldn't be there to learn it, right? So they don't, by definition, do not yet understand. And so the teacher demonstrates to them his or her attitude about learning and their ability to learn, not by the words he or she says, but by the way he or she interacts with the students. He demonstrates whether he believes in their ability to learn and to grow, or whether he thinks they are handicapped in their learning and this is over their heads. We all demonstrate this regardless of the subject we're teaching. And not to point fingers at myself per se, but I realize this is very true in my role here facilitating the group, is really a statement about what I believe about myself and about all of you. Yes, there's content to the material, but fundamentally, it's a statement about what it says here. It's a state trying to protect what we believe is real. This doesn't mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. But ultimately, we are teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish your doubts about yourself. Sandra?
Would you say that triggers are really good teachers?
I, I would say that you can learn from triggers, but I believe that positive reinforcement is a more loving way of teaching than there are actually certain traditions that they intentionally trigger you. It's called crazy wisdom. I'm talking spiritual traditions, intentionally stress their followers, their believers, as a means of teaching a lesson. So that is practiced in consciously and intentionally in some traditions. However, I believe you also more so in the method of positive reinforcement because it's more kind to the person's feelings, it's more loving, and it actually demonstrates the direction that you would hope they would follow rather than repel them by some harsh methods.
I would agree with you about the positive reinforcement, absolutely. But I would also like to include that triggers are great teachers.
We can definitely learn from our triggers. Next time you experience great upset with anybody, I'm speaking to everybody here, pray deeply for that person and you will learn a lot more than if you had never even thought of a reason to pray at all. Kathy?
Yeah, I'm going deeper into kindness. That's where I want to be. And I understand what Sandra's saying about, everything's a mirror and we learn lessons. Holy Spirit's, everything's a lesson for us. But kindness, if I can step out in kindness every day and openness, and I just want to take this moment because you talked about your teaching, Jonica. I've seen you for so many years now grow, and I've seen you become more and more accepting of the questions people ask, and you extend love. I just want you to know I've seen your growth as a teacher and I really appreciate it. Not that you were ever mean or anything like that, but I've seen you really just grow and be more accepting and loving toward others. I consider you a very loving man.
Well, I've come a long way. I weren't this way from the beginning. Thank you for that feedback, Kathy. I want to mention one more thing about triggers. There is a widely prevalent in the United States within the 20th century an approach to parenting that said, spare the rod and you'll spoil the child. It comes from the Bible. And that meant to many people physical punishment. It was characterized, I'm going to get the belt out, meaning father comes home and takes a belt and inflicts pain on the children. So we want to acknowledge that that was a practice. And so nuns used to use a ruler to hit the hands of children. This is not long time ago. This is not ancient history. And so that is what we're emerging out of. And so the path to kindness is still needs more attention and is underway, but we should acknowledge where we've come from and that that's not the only choice there is. As we read just a paragraph ago, there are two teaching systems that you can draw from, and we're learning to draw from the path of kindness and love. We'll go on.
This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone here does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that he is what he is not. Herein is the purpose of the world. What else, then, would its curriculum be? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death, God sends his teachers, and as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete.
I wanted to role play for a minute because it talks about the curriculum, the world's curriculum teaches solely to convince you that you are not what you are. And, that might be a little confusing at first. So I'm going to role play a little bit here. This is not the truth. This is the world's curriculum. You are a body destined to die. You are not an eternal son of God. You are not holy. You are not lovable. You are not worthy of love. You are nothing. This is the message the world teaches. It teaches you, this is what we said in the beginning, the reverse of the truth. It's upside down and teaches solely to convince you the purpose of the world is to teach you an alternative message that is not the truth about your being. And so that is what the situation into this hopeless and closed learning situation, God sends his teachers of kindness and truth and love. And they are to teach a different lesson, that there's another choice, lessons of joy and hope. And that becomes the emphasis for the remainder of volume 3, is that God sends people who are willing to believe in love and kindness, to learn it themselves, to incorporate it into their thoughts and their lives, to believe in it, and then to live their lives according to those principles so that they teach lessons of joy and hope.
Except for God's teachers, there would be little hope of salvation, for the world of sin would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive, for they must teach deception, and what else is hell? This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect, or they would not be here. Yet it is their mission to become perfect here, and so they teach perfection over and over in many, many ways until they have learned it. And then they are seen no more, although their thoughts remain a source of strength and truth forever. Who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer these questions.
So this is the intro here that introduces this idea of the teachers of God, a manual for the teachers of God. It's an alternative teaching system, as we demonstrated in the last two paragraphs. It's based on knowing the source of creation is love and eternal and perfect and true and joyous and hope, and that's where we all came from. That's what our nature is. That's what we are. And so it teaches a message of perfection in eternity in many different ways. And so from there, then you might ask more questions about these teachers of God. How are they chosen? What do they do? Here's a short version. You are being called to demonstrate in your own life, to learn the lessons of love and demonstrate them in your own life. So you're being called for that. The call, it's a universal call. It's open to everyone. And so I thank you for being here and taking some of your time to learn about this. So we'll go through the first section then, which is the who are God's teachers.
A teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as apart from someone else's. Once he has done that, his road is established and his direction is sure. A light has entered the darkness. It may be a single light, but that is enough. He has entered an agreement with God, even if he does not yet believe in him. He has become a bringer of salvation. He has become a teacher of God.
Mm-hmm. So what would be amazing, I think, is what is the threshold to become a teacher of God? You'd think, oh my goodness, that has to be, I have to be a holy person. Some people would say you have to go to seminary. Others would say you have to make a lifelong commitment to think that would be what the world would teach. But nay, 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 in the course, it says to make a deliberate choice in which you do not see your interest as apart from someone else's. And I've shared before when I kind of first started with teaching, I was teaching remedial reading to elementary school students. Well, we had the same goal. My interest and their interests were aligned. They wanted to learn to read, and I wanted for them to be able to read as well. The threshold for becoming a teacher is a willingness to care enough about another, that you would help them to learn, that you would join with them in a shared interest, regardless of what the material, the form it takes. We're talking, it can be all kinds of cooking a meal together, helping a person change their car tire. Not that we do that so much anymore nowadays. We usually call professionals, but that used to be one way in which you could help somebody. It doesn't matter the external form, as long as two people join together to share in a common interest, that you have joined your mind with, here's the principle. When you do that, you join your mind with another person's mind in a common purpose. That's a coming together of what would seem to be two different people joining for the single purpose. That is the threshold for being a teacher of God. And so you've already demonstrated that at multiple different points in your life. And so anyone who chooses to be a teacher of God is one. There is no qualification other than a desire to join with another person. And even though you don't realize it, when you join your mind with another person to share a common purpose, you've entered into an agreement with God. And it becomes a long-term agreement. It doesn't manifest itself necessarily in a way that you would recognize immediately, but it has long-term implications. Kathy?
They come from all over the world. They come from all religions and from no religion. They are the ones who have answered. The call is universal. It goes on all the time, everywhere. It calls for teachers to speak for it and redeem the world. Many hear it, but few will answer. Yet it is all a matter of time. Everyone will answer in the end, but the end can be a long, long way off. It is because of this that the plan of the teachers was established. Their function is to save time. Each one begins as a single light, but with the call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. And each one saves 1,000 years of time as the world judges it. To the call itself, time has no meaning.
So all are called, it's universal. Many hear it, but delay in responding. Many hear it, but few will answer immediately. They will drag their feet, so to speak, and occupy themselves with other matters, self-deceptions in other ways. But eventually, this is the plan of creation, that everyone learns the laws of love and lives according to them. And so everyone will answer in the end. However, that can take a long time before everyone comes around to the message of love. And for that reason, the function of the teacher is to shorten the amount of time it takes to learn the lessons of love, to convince people not to live in fear for another decade or another year, but to learn to be a beginner and practicing love now. Let love become real in your life. Take the first step forward. Each one begins as a single light. that grows and grows and grows and grows. So now we should say that these decades of time spent in fear, we're not saying, in the Holy Spirit would say nothing really happens when you're lost in your dreams of fear. It's not real. All that lost time is an illusion. But during all that time, there's a missed opportunity to feel peace and love and joy and to teach others. And therefore, it's unnecessary pain and suffering goes by. And the spirit would have us be happy, not in pain and suffering. And therefore, to save time, this entire course of miracles is to shorten the amount of time it takes to learn these lessons.
There is a course for every teacher of God. The form of the course varies greatly. So do the particular teaching aids involved. But the content of the course never changes. Its central theme is always God's Son is guiltless, and in his innocence is his salvation. It can be taught by actions or thoughts, in words or soundlessly, in any language or in no language, in any place or time or manner. It does not matter who the teacher was before he heard the call. He has become a savior by his answering. He has seen someone else as himself. He has therefore found his own salvation and the salvation of the world. In his rebirth is the world reborn.
So, not to let this be confusing, where it says a course for every teacher, the form of the course varies greatly. So, we mean the context, the situation, the life experiences. It should be obvious we all have very different life experiences. Even if you grow up in the same household, you wind up with different experiences than the other person. And certainly, if you grew up on another part of the country or in another time zone, your experiences are different. However, that's not what matters. That's not meaningful. What is meaningful is the underlying principles, we call it the content of the course, which never changes. And that content has to do with forgiveness, with the recognition that the other persons and yourself are innocent, that we should not be held accountable for our errors, our mistakes. We're not guilty. We're not carrying bad karma, that we are innocent. And I want to illustrate this one, not so much to talk about myself or the form, but to try to help convey a sense for this. When I was teaching this fourth grade boy, Tommy, when he first came to me, his self concept was the rest of the class is smart and I'm stupid. He walked in the room with his head down in shame because he was the one that didn't know how to read in the class. And that was message was more the way he felt about himself is the real content. He had an extremely low self-concept that was triggered by not being able to read. And so I somehow knew this and realized that I had to be his biggest believer. I had to believe in his ability to learn and to read, even though he did not. And so it you can teach these things by actions or thoughts. You can teach them in words or soundlessly in any language or at no language in any time or manner. It doesn't matter about those details. It matter it's almost like you come from your soul that cares and respects the soul of the other and is patient and willing to help the other along until they can regain their own self-confidence and be restored. And when Tommy finally, after about 6 or 8 reading sessions, when it all clicked again with him, he lit up like any 8-year-old little boy might be all thrilled and happy with himself. He lit up and realized that he was just a normal kid. He wasn't a defective. And that experience changed my life. I'm sure it had some implications for Tommy. I never saw him again after he lit up like that. But for me, it helped me to realize how the teaching encounter can be so meaningful for all parties concerned. Kathy?
How long ago was that, Jonica?
I was in Boulder, Colorado, Boulder County Public School Systems. That would have been 1985.
Wow. Okay, a long time, 39 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So that was that why you decided to stay in teaching? Like, was that like a moment?
From there, I was motivated. Yes, I taught gifted and talented children and became a tutor. I tutored over 100 individuals privately of all ages. This is over more than 10 years. I even taught um, um, older adults who never got their high school graduation, who never graduated from high school,
Mhm.
and helped them get their GED. Uh,
Mhm.
all informally. What was my qualifications? I was willing to help.
Wow, that's amazing. I think that's the beauty of the course. Like, you're not a degreed teacher, right?
Right.
And I'm not, I'm Catholic, but I don't even go to church anymore. And here I am, like going to church and not, I mean, going out to the grotto where the church is and I'm cleaning the statue. They're letting me do it as a volunteer. It's like, okay, I'm not no longer a member of the Catholic Church, but I'm have the opportunity to venerate the Blessed Mother. It's just like amazing. Does anybody else notice
Uh,
Jerry's light going on and off, like that golden light? That's amazing. Am I the only one that saw that? It was going on and off.
yeah, yeah. Well, the light's looking out for him. I had one more thing I wanted to share here. And again, I don't like to talk about myself that much, but if it's helpful, when I was in the fourth grade, they tested my reading level and it was at the second grade level. And Mrs. Kramer, my teacher, put me on a reading rehabilitation program. It's called the SRA or SAR teaching program. And I had her both in the third and fourth grade. And by the time I finished the fourth grade, I was at the fifth grade reading level. And that made all the difference in the world for me. You can imagine if I had remained 2 years behind in reading, what implication that may have had. So, do you understand now the principle where it says in the course, he has seen someone else as himself? That you don't necessarily tell people in your words um, these things, but it underlies the content of the relationship, which never changes, and that is that we are all worthy of love. Sandra?
Yeah, I would just like to share that my experience with this is that it's a process and it takes time. When I read this the first time, which was many years ago, I thought it was great, and I was saying many, many years ago, I am you and you are me and we are one. I said those words, but I really did not know how to integrate those words for years and years and years. And I'm still integrating them. So it's like to know that, to actually know that oneness and put somebody else's needs before your own, it's a process, especially if you've had challenges in your life. And I don't think there's anybody in this room that hasn't had challenges. And again, I've been so programmed to think of when you make a mistake, you have to be punished. That has to be off the table. Mistakes are for learning, not for punishment. I'm complete.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Sandra. Yeah, that ethic of sparing the rod and spoiling the child really was a lesson in punishment, and you know, millions of families were brought up under that, and I'm grateful that in our era we're now understanding how ill-advised that approach is and how we can move on. So just remember, in all your sharing with another person, you're actually expressing what you believe to be true about yourself. Jerry, you had your hand?
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but you talked about the nuns. I had one that used to the boys, just the boys, would line up in front of the classroom with the blackboard behind them, and she'd come along. The nun would come along and take your head by the hair, and bang your head against the blackboard. How about that?
I've never heard of anyone report that before,
Yeah, well, it happened.
but blackboards are like bricks,
Yeah,
not foam.
no, yeah, she was something else.
That is now today we would be concerned about the brain trauma.
Yeah, well, I
Uh,
have an excuse now. See, because I had parents that go home and tell them that, and my mom would say, "Oh, you probably deserved it."
well, illustrates that your mom and dad are just reflecting the ethic at the time. It was done
Yeah,
in school.
yeah,
And then your parents believed, well, this is probably the way to treat children.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of it was the way we treat children back then, and well, we're moving forward as a nation here, but wow, look how far we've come from.
Yeah. Well,
That's quite a report, Jerry. Thank you. All right, we'll go on.
This is a manual for a special curriculum intended for teachers of a special form of the universal course. There are many thousands of other forms, all with the same outcome. They merely save time. Yet it is time alone that winds unwearily, and the world is very tired now. It is old and worn and without hope. There was never a question of outcome, for what can change the will of God? But time, with its illusions of change and death, wears out the world and all things in it. Yet time has an ending, and it is this that the teachers of God are appointed to bring about. For time is in their hands. Such was their choice, and it is given them.
So, in all fairness, the statements that were just made are not introductory miracle statements. I don't even know if they're easy to appreciate at an intermediate level, like after a few years. I consider them to be more of an advanced set of insight. So I'm going to skip over it for the class here today, although you're welcome to ask me offline. This is a special curriculum intended for teachers of a special form of a universal course. I believe that universal course means throughout the universe, throughout creation, not throughout the world. There are many thousands of other forms. Well, I don't know that there are on this world, but there are many thousands of other forms, all with the same outcome. They merely save time. This goes back to the principle that we read earlier. The function of the teacher of God is to learn now what might otherwise take years and a lifetime to learn. Why? Because time winds on wearily in a very tired world. It wears down hope. Decades of lack of hope are not conducive to peace and love. And so we need to save time and learn kindness, love peace, and love hope in less time. That becomes the primary measure of real progress, is to learn to love sooner rather than later. Um, and and so time itself is not the significant, but we don't want it to drag on. And as we have read, again, more advanced idea, time itself has an end. We are in the universe age of time and space, but that is not all that creation has in mind. It has more ahead and beyond time and space. So it has an ending, and the ending of time is what the teachers of God are appointed to bring about, not to an apocalypse type of nightmare, but to complete the learning cycle so that learning is complete and forgiveness is complete. When that happens, time is no longer needed for learning. So, time has been put in the hands of those who are willing to teach love, such as a choice, such as it's given to them. So that constitutes the introduction and the identification of who are the teachers of God, those who are willing to serve, to learn love now and save time and help accelerate the process of learning to forgive. That's as far as we're going to read today. We will be moving on in subsequent sessions. Each of the remaining topics in the Manual for Teachers are formatted as a question and an answer to those questions. And so on the next session, we will look at who are the pupils of the teachers of God. And I look forward to our getting together and sharing in that all next time. So I want to thank you for your presence here today. I want to thank you for being a teacher and a learner, for willing to save time, and for believing in the power of love and the laws of love. Thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for
Thank
reading.
you.
I mean,
All have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace
Yeah.
on.
Have a great day.
See you next week.
Thank you, Jerry. Bye-bye.